Hi everyone, my name's Emily February. I'm also known as Ranger M. I'm an environmental educator and communicator, and I get to talk to a lot of different people about all things nature and conservation. I love to knowledge share, and that's what I want to do with you. So come on, let's go learn with Ranger M. Today we're at Fanshawe Conservation Area, where we're going to be joined by Kathleen from Hiking with Kathleen, the YouTube series. Today we're going to hike part of the Fanshawe Conservation Area trails, chat about nature and how nature can help us in our mental well-being. So let's go find Kathleen. Hi Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, well, first of all, thanks Emily for welcoming me on board. And yeah, so I guess I'm here representing my YouTube channel, which is Hiking with Kathleen. So I'm happy to get going out on a hike with you.
Perfect. All right, I would love to go check out the reservoir if you don't mind, so let's head out that way. Kathleen, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about your YouTube series and why you started it, when you started it.
It was never, ever my plan. So my career started right out of university as a naturalist. And I worked for 10 years in that field, teaching at a school board and at a provincial park at the same time. So when I had my summers off, I would work there as a naturalist and at the school board as a naturalist. So I did that for 10 years, loved it, but felt the funding was a little precarious. So I wasn't sure if that would continue to pay my mortgage. And so I left after 10 years and went into financial planning as a self-employed individual. And that was fantastic. So I did that for 22 years, and it was just this past September that I had the calling to retire. And I'd made that decision a year before, and I knew that I just needed to remove myself from all of the stress I was going through in my life. And at that time, we also had a pandemic thrown into the mix, right, in 2020, and I retired in September of 2020. So it worked out really well that with careful planning with my spouse at my side, maybe get kicking and screaming like, oh, do we have to sit down and look at the financial plan again? But we did, and we looked at all of our expenses that we projected into the future. And so we became satisfied that this was going to be a beautiful picture for us. So at the same time, my mom was suffering from dementia and was living in long-term care in a home 5 minutes from my home. So I was her primary caregiver, and I was working in a stressful career. So September 2020 was the perfect time for me to go ahead with my exit plan and return to the woods. And that ultimately is what I wanted to do. I was doing Facebook Live sessions. So I would be presented in September, October with deer. And I would have a video going on at 6 in the morning, and I would see people tuning in. They thought that was really cool. So when I noticed that people were interested, I thought there's a market for this. People seem to want to know about wildlife when they're at home having their coffee. So that's what I ended up doing. I launched the YouTube channel, not right away, because I just needed to have a break from everything. And so I walked in the woods, had my camera gear with me and my binoculars. But by February of 2021, so this year, is when I took a stab at launching a YouTube channel. But I had to be ready for that commitment, because you want to upload on a regular schedule and sort of commit to it like a job, even though it's a volunteer thing. So anyway, so it was February of 2021, and I have been uploading weekly highlights of my hikes and paddles and camping trips ever since then. And I just love it.
And Ontario has endless trails and immense amount of beauty for us to explore, so it's truly amazing.
Yeah, we're very, very fortunate here. And really it's a matter of just slowing down life. I think I learned that on one of our trips when Shannon and I went to Hawaii and we delved into snorkeling. There is nothing better than just being in the moment as you're swimming through the water and you see fish and coral reefs, and you're just in the moment. You're not thinking about the responsibilities you might have when you get back home. And that's what nature is for me. So being out in the woods every day gave me a chance to just live in the moment.
True or false? Turkey vultures don't have feathers on their heads because it helps prevent sunburn. True or false? Turkey vultures don't have feathers on their heads because it helps prevent sunburn. False. Turkey vultures actually plunge their heads into the carcasses of dead animals. If dirt, bacteria, or any other nasties get on their feathers, they can't clean them properly and would get sick. So, Kathleen, What makes you love and appreciate sharing your experiences and your hikes with your audience?
Their feedback.
Yeah?
Yeah, hands down. I've received some feedback that has indicated to me, it's kind of like a service I'm providing, but didn't start off with that. I just wanted to be able to share nature with people. But I guess in some situations where the feedback has made its way to my ears, people who maybe no longer have the ability to walk along on the hiking trails feel like they are the ones walking along with me as I'm crunching through the leaves or crunching through the snow, and bring the camera up close to the things that they're going to be able to see if they were with me. So it leaves them feeling sort of, it's almost like a new lease on life that it gives them. And because one of the things we had talked about is I have put out a couple of videos regarding how to reduce your stress by being in the outdoors, by being immersed in nature in some way, shape, or form, even sitting under a tree in your yard. And sometimes that kind of a pathway helps people to realize that I think there's a lot of natural medicine out there for me. If I take a dose of that medicine, maybe I too can change my life around and reduce stress. So I have received feedback where people have changed their course because they've watched the channel and they've seen some great things that have happened. Not because everything is fantastic on the channel in terms of there's always beautiful scenery and there's always capturing wildlife, but it's the fact that I'm out in nature, and that's the thing that I think feeds them. And they may not have realized that. They weren't maybe open to it before, but now they realize, oh my God, this is something that's really working for them. So that's why.
So you've been on social media for about a year. Do you think that your connection between nature and social media has helped other people fight for conservation, help our environment around us?
What it does, because really the only social media, I'm on Facebook privately, like just with my family and friends. And but social media wise, it's YouTube. And that's really the only venue that I have delved into, because I don't do Instagram or TikTok and all of the others that are possible. But I do enjoy using YouTube because I use it as a way of learning things myself. But as far as spreading the word of conservation, I think it can't hurt. I think that it exposes the message that I'm delivering to as many people as are interested when it shows up in their feed as a recommended video. So I think it does help with the message, because people then realize, I think this is something worth saving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you have a great ability to capture things on video. When did this love start?
Back in my, I guess in my childhood and things like that, where I was enjoying being in nature. But as far as carrying the video camera, you know, we all start off with a phone and have that form of imagery. And I really was just taking photos of nature. It wasn't until I started doing those Facebook live feeds that I realized people like seeing the animal interaction with their environment. And that's really what I was focusing on, as opposed to this is A, B, C, D critter. It was a matter of, this is maybe why A is doing this to C. You know, so I was interpreting the behavior that was being caught on video. And so that's when I became more enthused about carrying around a video camera and getting better cameras to be able to tell a story.
For picking it up in just the last year, you're doing really well.
Thank you.
So Kathleen, I'd really love to know what you're passionate about, what your life motto is.
It wasn't until probably more recently that I came up with it. And really the motto is spend time in nature. And it's a natural medicine. That's really it. It's just simple.
Yeah. So Kathleen, did you have any memorable trips in the past, any that really impacted your life?
This past year was really quite telling, because so my spouse Shannon and I got a trailer a year ago, all in preparation for me to retire, really. And so we knew that that's something we were going to delve into and see if camping was our thing. And so we did a little bit of camping last year, but this year we went full force. And given the pandemic, we just confined our efforts to reserving in provincial parks that were in Ontario. But we went up to Lake Superior, and that was an amazing setting. So
I've only heard good things about Lake Superior.
And we didn't drive there right from London, because that would have been a 12-hour drive. So we broke it up. We went to Grundy Lake Provincial Park, then up to Lake Superior, and on our way home we went to Owenda. So we were away for about 3.5 weeks. And that was amazing. It really was a great experience. So we came home for a week, went away to Wheatley, came home for about a month, and then we headed up to Algonquin and Arrowhead Provincial Parks. We did that for about 2.5 weeks in the month of September. We wanted to time it with the beautiful change in colors. And it's magical. It's magical when you wake up in the morning and you're having coffee and you're already outside. And we bring along our kitty. Our kitty's name is Miley, and she has her own tent. Sometimes she thinks she has a trailer that we are imposing on her when we enter it. But anyway, she loves camping because the smells and the sounds are just fascinating to her. And the tent she has, the bottom is sewed to the walls so she can run around and chase the red squirrels and chipmunks, but can't really get out at any of them. And so they tease her. But that's okay. So anyway, the three of us travel around very, very happily. And so that has been a really great way for me to be able to immerse myself in nature. And I'm just very fortunate that I have a spouse who loves it as much. And she's artistic, she's a photographer. And for our YouTube channel, she lays all the music tracks and helps to bring the Hiking with Kathleen videos to life like a movie.
Do you have any future trips planned?
You know, as we were walking along, you were talking about your experience in the East Coast, and we love the East Coast. So as long as borders remain open provincially, what we'd like to do is head out to Newfoundland next year and be able to explore that for about a month. So we're really looking forward to that. We hope that it works out because we'll be driving across in our trailer and stopping along the way. And we have some friends lined up that we'd like to see on our way. And then probably the following summer, we'd like to head out west. We've been out to Vancouver, we've been to Victoria. It's been beautiful out there. And so now we'd like to do it by trailer. And so hopefully that'll happen in 2023.
Oh, look. Obviously a deer's been through here. Truly amazing that we can still be in the city of London, but see wildlife like this. And I know it's not the actual deer, but it's still signs and it's still truly amazing.
Well, it leaves us feeling like, you know, they are in our backyard in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How many conservation areas are there in Ontario? A, 150, B, 500, C, 50, or D, 1,000? How many conservation areas are there in Ontario? A, 150, B, 500, C, 50, or D, 1,000? There's over 500 conservation areas in Ontario. Ontario's 36 conservation authorities collectively own and operate over 500 conservation areas with a total area of 150,000 hectares, making conservation authorities one of the largest property owners in the province. Now, Kathleen, I want to know, what's the coolest wildlife you have seen while you're out and about on your hikes?
You know, oftentimes people will think it was the bear that we saw in Grundy Lake, or it was the moose we saw in Algonquin, because those are the thumbnails. Those are what draw people into it. Look at those videos. Bar none, they were absolutely a thrill to see. But so was the coyote close to home. So are the deer close to home. Bald eagles. I never get tired of seeing wildlife. So really, everything has its moments. And as long as you get to capture the view long enough to be able to interpret what it's doing, as opposed to just, you know, where it's flashing by you, I love any sort of wildlife. But the big ones obviously maybe get my attention a little longer.
Because you have that history as a naturalist and, you know, you're getting back into it now, are you very skilled at identifying wildlife? Can you give us any tips or anything?
A video that I did, and it's not just to promote the video, it's just sometimes people who are not used to being out in wildlife and they feel like they've seen nothing, would benefit from seeing this video that, I think it was my first one. It's called How to Spot Wildlife. The biggest tip, the biggest tip is being able to recognize a break in the pattern. So if you see brown, 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 and then you see something dark or something light that has broken the pattern, that immediately should get your attention. The other thing is movement. Sometimes animals give themselves away because they're, you know, just breaking from their freeze pattern and running away from you. So sounds, listening for the sounds. Another form of listening for sounds would be when you hear a commotion. So when you hear, for instance, crows or blue jays making a big commotion, that is called mobbing behavior if the commotion is around something they're trying to drive away, like a predator. So sometimes I'll look up, I see the commotion, it's like, oh, I might see a bird of prey. So I'll look up because the birds have made me tune into their activity. So there's some really cool ways that animals just give themselves away.
I teach children outdoor ed, and they're always like, we're not seeing something, we're not seeing something. And I was like, well, if we stop yelling, we're not seeing stuff, and be a little quiet, and take a second, we can probably spot some wildlife.
I think one of the things you'd mentioned earlier on, we were walking along the trail and you saw a deer hoof print. So animals don't necessarily have to present themselves at that moment in time, but they present signs that they have been through there recently. So it could be a footprint. I love going in the winter and you see tracks in the freshly fallen snow. So I like to see tracks and figure out what they did. There's another thing too, scat. Animals will sometimes mark their trail with scat, which is their droppings. And so that's another neat thing because it tells you the animal has not only passed through there, but if you're really keen, you can look and see what the animal ate. So if it's a coyote, as opposed to a dog scat, you can tell the difference because coyote scat will typically have hair, maybe some small bones in it, whereas dogs will have Alpo in it. Alpo dog food.
Oh. Kathleen, have you found any hidden gems? I mean, you don't have to share them, but we'd love to know about them.
I'm out 2-3 times a week on a hiking trail, and I can find most of them to London, but there's so many amazing ones. So Westminster Ponds is a really amazing one, but it depends. If I'm into a lot of exercise that day, then I'll go Cairns Woods, because it's a long hike. It's 10 kilometers if you're going there and back. But I also love Medway Valley. Medway Valley is the place to be because it's just as beautiful when you look, and it's actually in one of my current videos where you just look down from the top of the hill and you look down into the valley and see the beautiful colored trees. So yeah, we've got a lot of gems in the city, but you know, Meadow Lily, that's another beautiful spot out in the south end. I'm not as familiar with Fanshawe Conservation Area, but I mean, this is also great. It's got a brutal bike trail, but it's but it's a great park for sure.
Kathleen, I was wondering how you plan your day trips and your camping trips.
When I'm choosing a trip for the day, like I typically wake up in the morning knowing that that's what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to be hiking. Maybe there's a little bit more footage that I need to finish off a video because, as I say, I produce them one a week. But if we're camping, there's no waiting for chance. You have to plan that 5 months in advance in order to reserve in the provincial parks in Ontario. So that's where you get up at 7 in the morning or before and try to reserve your campsite. So we already have mapped out where it is we think we'd like to go, like when we did it for this year. So we just discuss those in advance, and then we get on, we see what sites are available, and go from there.
For anyone who is watching and learning with us, can you give us a tip for day tripping at all or going on hikes?
Footwear is number one. Wearing the proper footwear, because you want to be comfortable, but you also want to be dry. So if you have waterproof hiking boots with good treads, that's an excellent start. I've got lots of rain gear, and I'm talking about heavy duty rain gear. I like pants with pockets in them. So that way it carries gear that I have from my camera lenses and things of that nature. But even my rain gear will have lots of pockets. Same with the coat that I'm wearing. You want to be comfortable. I love coats that have two-way zippers. So they zip up from the bottom and then they zip the normal way. And that way, if you're reaching for your gear, it makes it a little bit easier. There's different brands. You know, it depends on what your preference is, but number one is your foot gear.
Did you know beavers use their tails for communication, as a rudder, a storehouse of fat, and their tail actually helps them stay propped up when they're chewing at a log, like a little kickstand? Did you know beavers use their tails for communication, as a rudder, a storehouse of fat, and their tail actually helps them stay propped up when they're chewing at a log, like a little kickstand? Now, Kathleen, in several of your videos, you touch on mental health and how getting outside and in nature can really benefit us, you know, physically, but also mentally.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you could share anything about that and just a little tidbit on what you touch in your videos.
You really don't have any kind of an idea of what kind of a fixer being in nature can be until you actually go out and experience it. And I really had no idea. All I just knew is I was going through the motions. I would go for my walks around the neighborhood or maybe go out on the trail. But it wasn't until I started immersing myself in it. And what I mean by that is where I carried the camera, carried my binoculars. And so therefore I wasn't just there for a moment. I was there to enjoy maybe a couple of hours. That in itself helps you to bring your thought process to the present moment. And and I've read some good books that I think help to reinforce that view. So one such example is called The Nature Fix. Florence Williams is the author of that book. And she also authored the book 3-Day Effect. And the premise behind that, and she provides facts and figures, and that is what I like because it's based on scientific information. But the 3-Day Effect is about the amount of time minimally that one would want to spend in nature in order to kind of get through maybe things like post-traumatic stress syndrome, a crisis of some sort. So she had interviewed various individuals, and these were some of the methods she found there was a lot of credibility to. But I guess in my own grieving process, so when my mom passed away at the end of April, I started going for walks in the woods, and yes, had made my retirement plan with a certain date. I had set the date at that point. And when I started into my retirement, for the first 3 months, I was walking through the woods in a fog. And I thought maybe it's because glasses that I was wearing for driving would be ones that I'd have to wear going through the woods. And you know, it's cumbersome when you're using binoculars and you have glasses on. But I thought, okay, well, that's what I'll try doing. Well, it didn't change anything. So here it was, about 3 months of walking in a fog. And then eventually, 3 months into retirement, that fog lifted and I could see with extra great clarity. Turns out, and this is mentioned in one of my videos, the fact that I went to my eye doctor appointment at her request, because I hadn't been for a couple of years, and she said, oh my God, your vision has improved. You don't need glasses anymore. And so this is just, and I still need them for reading because, you know, it's one of those fantastic things when you age, your eyes become less elastic for seeing things up close. But for distance viewing, I no longer require glasses, and that is probably largely attributable to the decline in stress in my life. So I guess just to your question, it's a natural medicine, and it can help people who are facing whatever, whether it's grief, stress. Being out in nature is a really wonderful thing. Doesn't cost any money, and just allows you to just immerse yourself in the moment.
That's a terrific example, I guess, of how stress can affect us physically. That's amazing. And how you reduce that stress, and that's amazing.
And lived happily ever after.
Yes, yes. Well, Kathleen, we've reached the end of the trail. I want to thank you again for joining me at Fanshawe Conservation Area. And if you just want to tell the listeners again where they can find you, and hopefully they can watch your videos, especially if, let's say, they can't get out in nature, they can experience with you.
Yeah, well, that's great. And I do appreciate, Emily, that opportunity you're providing to me and to my channel. So besides finding me out in the woods, you can find my videos on YouTube, searching for Hiking with Kathleen. I look forward to having you join me on one of those virtual hikes.
Thank you, everyone. See you in nature. Being outdoors is good for us in so many ways. We know our mental health is just as important as our physical health, and they both are connected in many ways. Evidence shows that being outside and connecting with nature can provide many health and well-being benefits, including reducing symptoms of stress, providing physical activity opportunities, contributing to dementia treatment, developing employability skills, and so many more. Nature improving our mental well-being can be as easy as tending to your garden, or even just having your bare feet touch the forest floor or the grass beneath you. For this week's activity, I would love for you to join me in taking time out of your day, whether it's every day for 5 or 10 minutes, or once a week for an hour. Take time to yourself and step into nature. I've provided some ways on the screen. Have fun and take care.